The twin sons of Cathara IV beat down mercilessly on the cracked earth, turning the canyon into an oven of desperation. Lyra Vale wiped the sweat from her brow and checked her scanner again. 3 days since her shuttle had crashed in this godforsaken wasteland, and still no sign of a rescue beacon response. She was rationing her emergency supplies carefully. 2 protein bars left, half a canteen of water, and a medical kit that wouldn't do much good if she encountered anything truly dangerous. The locals called this region the Ash Barrens. For good reason. Nothing grew here. Nothing thrived here. And according to the planetary surveys, nothing should be alive here. That's why the growling caught her completely off guard. Lyra's hand instinctively went to the plasma pistol at her hip as she spun around. What she saw made her freeze, not from fear, but from something far more complicated. A pack of 6 Ketharan razorbacks emerged from behind the rocks. They were magnificent creatures, apex predators with midnight black scales that shimmered with an oily iridescence. Powerful haunches built for explosive speed, and jaws lined with crystalline teeth that could shear through reinforced steel. Humanity had catalogued them years ago. Intelligent, social, fiercely territorial, and absolutely lethal. But these razorbacks weren't preparing to attack. They were starving. Lyra could see it in every line of their bodies. Ribs protruded sharply beneath their scales. Their movements were sluggish, conserving energy. The largest one, clearly the pack leader, had eyes that burned with desperation rather than aggression. And behind them, partially hidden by the alpha's bulk, was a cub Tovik. She would later learn his name was Who Could Barely Stand. The cub's scales had lost their sheen entirely, turned dull gray with malnutrition. His eyes were glazed, and his breathing came in shallow, labored gasps. He couldn't have been more than a few months old, still dependent on the pack for everything, and the pack had nothing left to give him. Lyra's analytical mind raced through the probabilities. The drought had been going on for 18 months according to her briefing. Migration patterns disrupted. Prey species had either died off or fled to more hospitable regions. This pack had probably stayed behind because of the cub too young to make the treacherous journey across the wasteland to better hunting grounds. Now they were paying the price for their loyalty. The alpha razorback growled again, but it wasn't a threat. It was a plea. Every instinct of self-preservation screamed at Lyra to back away slowly, to preserve her meager supplies, to remember that she was stranded and vulnerable herself. Command would call this foolish. Her training officer would call it suicidal. The entire human survival doctrine was built on the principle of securing your own oxygen mask before helping others. But Lyra Vale hadn't joined the Expeditionary Corps to follow doctrine. She'd joined because she believed humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their adaptability, it was their seemingly insane capacity for compassion. She slowly reached into her pack and pulled out one of her 2 remaining protein bars. The alpha tensed, ready to defend the pack if this was an attack. Lyra carefully unwrapped the bar, broke it in half, and then broke those halves into smaller pieces. She tossed the first piece midway between herself and the pack. The alpha didn't move. Its eyes tracked the food, then returned to Lyra, calculating, assessing threat levels. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, with agonizing slowness, the alpha moved forward, sniffed the protein bar piece, and consumed it in one bite. Lyra tossed another piece, closer to Tovik. The cub didn't have the strength to move, but a younger adult, probably the mother, carefully picked it up and brought it to him. Tovik's jaws worked weakly, but he managed to swallow. One by one, Lyra distributed the pieces of her protein bar to the pack. It wasn't nearly enough, not even close to what they needed, but it was something. A gesture, a bridge across the vast gulf between species. When the food was gone, the razorbacks didn't leave. The alpha approached Lyra cautiously, stopping just a few feet away. This close, she could see the intelligence in its eyes, the calculations, the understanding that this strange bipedal creature had made a choice that defied logical explanation. Lyra reached into her pack again and pulled out her last protein bar. She held it up so the alpha could see it, then very deliberately set it on the ground near Tovik before backing away. The message was clear. This is for the cub. The mother razorback immediately seized the bar and fed it to Tovik in small, careful bites. The cub's eyes cleared slightly, just enough awareness returning for him to look directly at Lyra. In that moment, something fundamental shifted in the dynamics of the canyon. The pack settled in around her, not threatening, but protective. The alpha positioned itself between Lyra and the open canyon entrance. Two others took up flanking positions. They weren't guarding her as prey. They were guarding her as one of them. Lyra's water and food were now gone. By every rational calculation, she'd just signed her own death warrant. But as the temperature began to drop with the setting of the first sun, she felt an unexpected warmth. The razorbacks had pressed closer, sharing their body heat with her. Tovik, despite his weakness, crawled over and rested his head against her leg. His scales were rough but oddly comforting against her skin. Lyra gently placed her hand on his head, feeling the rapid flutter of his heartbeat. "We're going to be okay," she whispered, though she had no rational basis for believing it. "Somehow, we're all going to be okay." The alpha made a sound, not a growl, but something closer to a rumble of agreement. As the stars of Kithara IV emerged in the darkening sky, Lyra realized that she'd done something humans had been doing since they first looked up at those ancient Earth stars. She'd chosen connection over survival, empathy over logic, and hope over despair. When the rescue team finally located Lyra's emergency beacon 2 days later, they found something that would be studied by xenobiologists for generations. A human woman, dehydrated and exhausted but alive, sleeping in the center of a protective circle of Ketharan razorbacks, one of the most dangerous predator species in the sector. And curled up directly against her, sharing warmth and drawing comfort from her presence, was a cub named Tovik, who would grow up to become the first razorback to ever willingly approach human settlements. The rescue team's captain asked Lyra the obvious question: "How did you survive?" Lyra looked back at the pack, at Tovik who watched her with those intelligent, grateful eyes, and at the alpha who had taught her that sometimes the greatest predator in the universe isn't the one with the sharpest teeth, it's the one with the biggest heart. "I didn't," she said simply. "We did."